Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Stephanie Bree. It's almost 100 degrees out, so that sucks. And because I'm practically melting and this laptop is burning as it sits on my lap, I'm going to breeze through this video pretty quickly. This is my top 25 greatest sports figures of all time. I'm not going to read you their highlights because these people are so well known, you probably already know who they are. This is just my ranking. And I'll just briefly mention why they're significant as I go. Number 25 is Scottie Pippen. He makes the list pretty much because the Chicago Bulls would not have been as successful as they were in the 90s without him providing support to the GOAT. And yeah, this was very much necessary. Number 24 is Dak Prescott because he's the best thing to happen to the Dallas Cowboys since the 90s. And if you're a Cowboys fan or you are friends with Cowboys fans, you know how important Dak Prescott is to the team. Number 23 is Austin Matthews. He is probably the biggest name in hockey right now, and probably the biggest name since Wayne Gretzky. Number 22 is Wilt Chamberlain. He's a legend in the basketball game. One of the highest scorers of all time. Not all-time scoring, but just he's scored the most points in a single game, and his record hasn't even been close to being touched. Number 21 is Emmitt Smith. Again, going back to the Cowboys, they would not have had the dynasty they had, as briefly as it was, in the 90s without Emmitt Smith. I cannot stand that jiggling. I don't know what it is. Number 20 is Muhammad Ali. He's one of the greatest boxers of all time. Number 19 is Dirk Nowitzki. He is a basketball player from the, I believe it was the, I want to say Dallas Mavericks dynasty. They're one championship. But as a Dallas Mavericks, I'm not a fan, but they're in my top 5. So, and I like Dirk Nowitzki. He's a pretty cool dude, I think. Number 18 is Ken Griffey Jr. If you grew up in the 90s and you owned a Super Nintendo, you know who Ken Griffey Jr. is. That's all I have to say. Likewise, number 17, Joe Montana. If you grew up in the 90s and you owned a Sega Genesis, you know who Joe Montana is. And number 16 is Larry Bird. He's another top-tier basketball player who's one of those names pretty much everybody knows. Number 15 is Tom Brady. I mean, the guy's got more rings than just about any other athlete in sports. So, come on, he was going to make the list. Probably not, because he's kind of a crummy human being, but a lot of these people are scummy human beings. We're just going based on their athletic accomplishments or notoriety. Which brings us to number 14, Tiger Woods. He's basically the guy that made, he's the first, prominent African-American professional golfer, and he's the guy that made golf sort of cool in the 90s, which paved the way for Mario Golf and Hot Shots Golf and everything else. Number 13 is George Foreman. I don't have to tell you who he is. He's one of the greatest boxers of all time. Also, the George Foreman grill. Come on. Number 12 is Patrick Mahomes. He's the man. I am a Kansas City Chiefs fan, and thank all the gods that Patrick Mahomes went to the Chiefs because we're doing pretty goddamn good, thanks to Mr. Mahomes, and I'd like to keep him on the roster, so throw the money at him as necessary. Number 11 is Shaq. Now, yeah, you've got his movies and cartoons, and he was a good ball player with the Lakers, and he's got his rings, but dude, Shaq Fu, come on. Again, if you were a kid in the 90s and you owned a Sega Genesis, don't lie to me. You played Shaq Fu. Don't lie to me. Yes, you did. Number 10 is Brett Favre. The dude is probably an asshole and a scumbag in real life, but he can throw the fucking football, and he's got the rings and the titles and the trophies and everything else to prove it. Number 9, Tony Romo. Now, the only reason why he's higher on the list than Dak Prescott is because he had a good run. Dak is still running. Tony Romo's legacy is firmly cemented. We're still watching Dak Prescott to see where he ends up on these things. If I did this list 5 years from now, Those names may be reversed or whatever. Number 8 is Charles Barkley. He doesn't get a lot of notoriety for some reason because he don't got the rings. The dude don't need the rings. He's just like legit dope as fuck all on his own. Number 7 is Hulk Hogan. I know professional wrestling is technically sports entertainment, but this is sports figures of all time. And he is definitely a sports figure. And Hulk Hogan is like the face of professional wrestling entertainment for not just my generation, but pretty much the entirety of the WWF's run before it became WWE. Number 6, the previously mentioned Wayne Gretzky, who is probably the greatest hockey player of all time. And until I told you who Austin Matthews was 5 minutes ago, you probably already knew who Wayne Gretzky was, or at least knew of his name. He's probably the only hockey player you knew before I mentioned the name Austin Matthews. Now you know who Austin Matthews is, and you got it in your head because I've said it 12 times. Number 5 is Babe Ruth. Tremendous piece of shit human being, and I know as far as baseball goes, there are other historical figures that brought baseball to more people, like Jackie Robinson and whatnot. But the dude's got a candy bar named after him, kind of, sort of. And, you had the whole Yankee curse and all this other bullshit. So, yeah, you gotta at least know, who Babe Ruth is. Number 4 is Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant is one of the top 5 greatest basketball players of all time. He's also one of the greatest sports players of any sport of all time. Number 3 is Troy Aikman. Again, you wouldn't have had the dynasty as brief as it was in the 90s for the Cowboys if it weren't for Troy Aikman, backed up by Emmitt Smith, who we already put earlier on the list. But, quarterbacks are usually more important, at least in the public eye, than, the runners. So there is that. Number 2 is Mike fucking Tyson. And may the gods bless us with him knocking Jake Paul's block off whenever that fight inevitably happens. The dude's a fucking legend. And again, if you were a kid in the 80s and 90s, you played Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. Or you've watched Mike Matei play Mike Tyson's Punch-Out on YouTube. And obviously, number 1, greatest fucking athlete of all time. This is probably not debatable as far as I'm concerned. It's Michael Jordan. Who did you fucking think it was going to be? Honest to God, who did you fucking think it was going to be? It's Michael Jordan. Do you remember how at the start of this video I told you I was a Chicago Bulls fan and also a child of the 90s? Why do you think I was a Chicago Bulls fan? Well, I grew up in the Midwest and I'm a child of the 90s. Come on. Stay cool.